A political shockwave has just erupted, and this time Keir Starmer is standing at ground zero. Richard Tice has unleashed a move so forceful it has riled Westminster and ignited chaos inside Labour headquarters. The era of warnings and polite discussion is over. Reform UK has stopped talking and started acting fast. The signal is unmistakable. If Labour, the Liberal Democrats, and the Greens are so committed to unrestricted migration, then they should take direct responsibility themselves. Tice has flipped the script in a way few anticipated, moving migrants straight to the doorsteps of the very councils that champion open border policies. It's a sharp confrontation, a ruthless political reversal, and the opening phase of a clash that could redefine Britain's direction. In a calculated escalation, Tice has abandoned restraint and gone straight on the offensive. Reform UK, riding momentum from significant local victories, is now using its newly gained council authority to do what others avoided and Labour never expected, blocking migrant placements in working-class communities that never agreed to them and rerouting them toward the heartlands of pro-migration parties. The approach is blunt but powerful. If a council backed mass migration, promoted asylum accommodation, or displayed welcoming slogans, then that council must carry the burden. That stance is no longer rhetoric, it's policy, as formal documents are finalized by reform-aligned council leaders, with plans advancing to relocate migrants into Labour and Liberal Democrat constituencies. This is no longer talk, it's action, and the silence from Labour's front bench says everything. Starmer, blindsided by the speed of events, has slipped straight into damage control. This escalation wasn't driven by irritation alone, it was fueled by a sense of betrayal. For years, Reform UK and millions of ordinary people watched Conservative leaders speak firmly on migration while delivering nothing. Meanwhile, Labour-led councils quietly filled hotels, former military sites, and holiday parks with large numbers of undocumented arrivals as local residents objected, families demonstrated, and entire communities raised concerns. They were dismissed, branded, or shut down. Now, after years of establishment neglect, Reform UK is shifting authority back toward voters, and the political order is starting to tremble. The turning point came when Tice stated, if you supported it, you should take responsibility for it, and in that moment, the balance of power shifted. The first flashpoint is Lincolnshire, where Reform UK's newly secured council majority has already begun enforcing its placement blocking strategy. They aren't simply refusing new arrivals, they are actively identifying alternative councils where responsibility should fall. The focus is deliberate: Labour-controlled towns that proudly promoted open border values, Green Party strongholds that displayed welcome banners while nearby areas buckled under strain, and Liberal Democrat territories that endorsed higher intake only when it stayed elsewhere. Those councils are now being told the responsibility is theirs. Richard Tice is not posturing. Reform UK has already mobilized legal teams to challenge central government decisions, blocking placements in their areas and redirecting pressure toward councils that spent years signaling virtue while avoiding the consequences, leaving the political establishment visibly shaken, much like US governors such as Greg Abbott rewrote the playbook by relocating migrants to Democrat-led cities. Tice is now applying that same strategy in the UK, and it's having an impact. Established media outlets are scrambling while Labour MPs are visibly rattled. Within moments of the announcement, Westminster was buzzing, and Keir Starmer was reportedly forced into an emergency meeting with senior Labour figures in a bid to contain the fallout, but the effects are already spreading. While Starmer struggles behind closed doors, Reform UK is advancing openly and confidently. Their ambitions extend far beyond stopping local placements, aiming instead to overhaul national migration policy altogether. They are pushing to repeal the Human Rights Act, exit the European Court of Human Rights, accelerate removals for unauthorized entry, and replace costly accommodation with basic temporary facilities. Tice's language was deliberate and uncompromising, arguing that if members of the British Armed Forces can operate in tents, then newcomers who enter unlawfully can be housed the same way. That hardline message is striking a chord with tens of thousands of voters who feel ignored. Labour's leadership is now cornered, forced to either respond and reveal contradictions or remain silent and appear ineffective. In that vacuum, Reform UK continues to build momentum, with Nigel Farage amplifying pressure from the background. This has moved beyond symbolic protest into a nationwide movement unfolding live. Councils that once proudly displayed welcome slogans are now anxiously reviewing reform's challenge, questioning whether they can resist it at all. Legally, their options may be limited. The framework is already in place, and reform is moving ahead with precision. The reality is stark. Starmer never anticipated serious resistance. He assumed reform would remain on the margins while Labour reshaped the country quietly, but Tice has turned the narrative on its head. Rather than staying on the defensive, he has gone on the offensive with a sweeping political assault, leaving Starmer, Ed Davey, and the wider pro-migration leadership scrambling to keep pace. The public is watching it play out, many applauding as momentum shifts and the consequences of Reform UK's migrant redirection strategy spread at speed. The political establishment is reeling, with Labour figures privately admitting they are struggling to contain what is being called the most powerful grassroots backlash in more than a decade. The belief that working-class towns should no longer absorb the full pressure of migration has ignited communities that felt ignored and managed for years. Richard Tice and Nigel Farage have staked out a position that connects with millions. Migration policy should not be shaped by insulated elites living comfortably removed from its effects. That stance is rewriting the entire national conversation. Councils that once projected moral certainty from afar are now being forced to confront real consequences. Behind closed doors, anxiety is mounting. Reports indicate Keir Starmer is losing control of the narrative, while Labour councillors in pro-migration areas are said to be furious at being left exposed by a leadership unprepared for the backlash. Some are quietly telling reporters that Starmer's continued silence makes them appear weak and isolated. Once promoted as steady and composed, he is now increasingly viewed as hesitant and detached. Voters are pressing tough questions. If you supported unauthorized migration, why won't you take responsibility, and why do the same communities always pay the price? The Liberal Democrats and Greens are feeling the strain as well. Ed Davey's party faces a political rebound as Lib Dem-run councils are flagged for relocations, while Green Party messaging is starting to ring hollow as local resistance intensifies. Voters are demanding substance, not empty slogans, and as disorder engulfs the traditional parties, Reform UK is tightening its grip. Tice and his legal team are deploying a coordinated national strategy to shield councils from enforced placements, supported by public forums, intense media outreach, and dedicated task groups to keep the issue firmly in focus. Unlike the establishment, reform is moving with speed, clarity, and decisive leadership. Leaked Home Office briefings reveal growing unease in Whitehall as officials rush to examine the legal implications of reform's resistance. Nigel Farage's presence is unmistakable. Though not formally returned, his guidance on messaging and strategy is evident, positioning him as a powerful force behind the scenes. While Tice leads publicly, the combination alarms critics and galvanizes supporters, as they shape a blunt doctrine built on the conviction that Britain's quiet majority has been sidelined for too long. Traditional media is struggling to keep pace, and efforts to minimize the story are backfiring as audiences turn elsewhere. Online platforms are surging with footage, commentary, and demonstrations outside temporary housing sites. The political class is being pulled into a confrontation it tried to sidestep. Momentum has shifted. The public wants responsibility and direction. Reform UK continues to gain ground, with membership rising, funding increasing, and speculation of defections intensifying. Figures from both Conservative and Labour camps are discreetly sounding out options. The political centre is weakening. What began as resistance is becoming a realignment. Tice's decision has ignited a chain reaction that is rippling through every layer of politics. Citizens are choosing sides. Communities are mobilizing behind reform's message. Patience has run out. The Conservatives stand exposed after years of unfulfilled pledges, and Labour is straining under growing internal pressure. Farage's potential comeback hangs over Westminster like a gathering storm, while on the ground the impact is unmistakable. Protests surge, leaflets circulate, volunteers mobilize, donations pour in, and candidates step forward. Reform UK is evolving into a disciplined grassroots insurgency. Legal battles are looming, and the courts may soon determine who truly controls migrant housing. Should reform prevail, the ramifications would be monumental, empowering councils nationwide and creating a patchwork of local resistance that could fundamentally reshape how immigration policy is applied. Such a decision would not only legitimize Reform UK's confrontational approach but inspire dozens of councils to follow suit, hastening the erosion of centralised authority. The Home Office, already overstretched and politically vulnerable, would be forced to react in a landscape where local leaders refuse to comply quietly. The prospect has sent tremors through Whitehall, with senior officials privately acknowledging that precedent could overturn decades of governance norms, transferring power from unelected bureaucrats back to elected local representatives. For Reform UK, this is the objective. Tice has consistently argued that communities should hold ultimate authority over decisions that directly impact their safety, resources, and cohesion. A court ruling in their favor would mark one of the most profound shifts of power in modern British political history. As momentum surges, the political climate across Britain is shifting fast. What once seemed like resignation is now defiance, with working-class communities, long told they had no voice, seeing tangible proof that resistance works. Reform UK's message spreads not through polished marketing, but because it mirrors lived realities. Rising housing costs, stretched public services, and a sense of cultural displacement have created fertile ground for a movement promising action over excuses. Meanwhile, the establishment appears increasingly disoriented. Efforts to paint Reform UK as extreme or reckless fall flat with voters who feel they've already suffered from inaction. Every attack from legacy media only strengthens support, highlighting an elite desperate to shield itself. Starmer now faces a defining crossroads. His cautious silence is no longer viable, yet any bold move risks alienating factions within his own party. Adjusting policy on migration would invite charges of hypocrisy, while continued inaction accelerates the drift of support toward Reform UK. The longer he hesitates, the more control over the narrative slips away. Reform UK, in contrast, is acting with precision and purpose. Its leadership recognizes that political openings are fleeting and is fully exploiting this moment. Leveraging council authority, legal momentum, grassroots energy, and a rising national profile, the party is positioning itself not merely as a protest movement, but as a credible governing force. What unfolds next will shape British politics for years. Through courts, ballots, or public demonstrations, the fight over immigration has entered a decisive, high-stakes phase. The rules have shifted, the battle lines are clear, and old assumptions no longer hold. One truth stands out: the era of silent compliance is finished, and the political establishment is confronting a challenge it neither anticipated nor prepared for. This conflict reaches far beyond immigration, signaling a wider revolt against a political class seen as distant, unaccountable, and shielded from the fallout of its own choices. Reform UK's strategy taps into a deep, cross-party frustration, the sense that ordinary voters have been managed rather than represented. While migration is the spark, the underlying struggle is about power, trust, and legitimacy. Local councils are now on the front line. Meetings once routine and sparsely attended are now packed, charged with debate. Councillors who once followed party lines without question are being forced to justify decisions to increasingly angry constituents. Pressure is mounting. Some councils quietly search for legal loopholes to resist placements, while others openly defy central authority. Each act of resistance reinforces the perception that the old system is cracking. The economic reality amplifies the tension. With public finances stretched, communities are questioning why limited resources are being redirected to house undocumented arrivals while schools, GP surgeries, and social housing lists crumble. Reform UK has seized on this, framing the debate not in abstract ideals but in the tangible, everyday consequences voters feel firsthand. This approach has proven strikingly effective, cutting through years of political messaging that ignored real-world pressures. Meanwhile, tensions inside the major parties are escalating. Labour MPs in marginal seats are acutely aware that their political survival may hinge on breaking from the party line, while private briefings and internal disputes are multiplying as leadership struggles to maintain control. The Conservatives, still reeling from credibility losses on border control, are now squeezed on all sides, with Reform UK occupying territory they once claimed as their own. The media landscape is shifting too. Traditional outlets are losing their grip as independent platforms and social media dominate the conversation, with footage from council meetings, protests, and street interviews spreading widely, often before official responses are even possible. This real-time scrutiny leaves politicians exposed, and in contrast, Reform UK's direct, uncompromising messaging stands out. Supporters hail it as honest and refreshing, critics label it provocative and risky. Either way, it commands attention, forcing every political actor to react on Reform UK's terms, not theirs. As the weeks progress, the question is no longer whether Reform UK will influence the debate, but how far that influence will reach. Will it extract concessions from Labour, fracture the Conservative base irreparably, or convert grassroots energy into electoral victory? Each scenario carries weighty consequences for Britain's political future. One thing is certain, the status quo has been shattered. Long-held assumptions about immigration policy, party loyalty, and voter behavior are being tested simultaneously. Westminster stands on unstable ground, with no clear path back to calm. For better or worse, the nation has entered a period of reckoning, one shaped not by quiet backroom deals, but by open, public confrontation.